Hi, this is CJ Lowry and Alan Lohman here, two of the co-founders of Eukolos, Easy, Simple, Meaningful. We just wanted to do a quick overview of what our program can do so that as you're looking at the website, you may have a brief idea of what it can do, especially if you want to show somebody else. So the first thing we look at when we look at our program is how we make data-driven instruction. So, the first thing we want to look at is when we looked at Mr. Lohman, and I'm going to let him tell you exactly how he used this data and where the idea came from.
So I'm a teacher in Richardson for about 10 years, and I feel like I was being successful with the level of students that I had. But when I got data back, given my ESL population, my GT population, I was kind of near the bottom of the barrel. And making data-driven decisions, I figured, hey, this way of instruction isn't working. I need to change what I'm doing, and I need to change it drastically. But I thought something's not right here. What we're doing is comparing apples to apples in this sense. All the students sitting in my ESL class, they're not on the same level. They're at different levels. And the same thing is for the ESL students across the district. They're at different levels. So I knew that way of comparison wasn't the most accurate way to do that. I figured out if I could get Farishta from my ESL class and see what are the other students across the district that are on Farishta's level, how are they performing? So Farishta on her scale score got a 3600. What are the Farishtas across the district doing? And on average, I was able to see that I was adding about 300 scale score points to Farishta's score. So I was being effective with her. And then I compared my next student, my Nixons, and said, okay, Nixon across the district, how is he doing? And so whenever we ran this new metric comparing how a kid is doing compared to their like kid across the across the district, these were the reports that we ran. And it showed me that I was being highly effective with the ESL students, and I was also being pretty effective with the GT students as well. So here I was thinking I need to change what I'm doing. But when I saw these reports, it's like, no, it confirmed I am having success. I need to keep doing what I'm doing. And so I was very enthusiastic about it. I shared this with CJ, my assistant principal at the time, and I shared it with some other teachers. And Mr. Lauer is going to tell you what their thoughts were.
When we started looking at this, we had a few teachers that, you have those teachers that just want to jump in and try something new because for whatever reason, the old way of doing things was not getting them where they wanted to be. So our first one, Karen Nyholm, the biggest thing for her was teachers are teachers to make a difference. And we're losing too many teachers that really got into it to make a difference because we're not showing them that they're making a difference and we're not showing them how well they're doing. And so really with the Eukolos data, we can show you how effective you're doing. Just because you're scoring a 50% pass rate, that doesn't mean you're doing poor, because if you're making 50%, but the level of kids you're having across the district or across the state are only getting 40, you're doing well. And we want to celebrate that. Josh Benningfield, same thing. He's a teacher that teaches a lot of the ESL and SPED students, and he's not really a data guy. And we know out there's a lot of teachers that just aren't data people. And for him, it was just easier to understand. And two, it was no longer demoralizing. He could we evened the playing field for him, and no longer was he just being compared to the teachers that are teaching AP and pre-AP classes. He could see how his kids were doing as compared to similar kids across the district. And so then he got to see, hey, here's my strengths and weaknesses. And now the strengths were celebrated, and those areas where he needed to improve, he was more open to improve them because it was being compared to similar kids, not just to a pre-AP class. And then Miss Blakely, another teacher that's back in the classroom after spending some time with her kids. Again, someone else that wasn't a huge data. Her exact words, I don't ever want to look at the old way of looking at data again. And then, she was really impressed because the PLC program, the PLC that they were working in, really wasn't working that well because you had a lot of really strong personalities that weren't really looking at how they were being effective as with their kids and what they could also learn from each other. So the learning piece of professional learning community was not there. So for her, they had a lot better PLC discussions once they had the data and could see those strengths and weaknesses across the district. So really our Eukolos dream, what is it? We believe that every student can be successful, every one of them, but they can't all be successful at the same level. They're not all the same. They all have different levels of abilities that they're coming in with, and our goal is to just keep growing them year after year after year. And if you look at John Hattie's research, there's two things he talks about in teacher estimates of achievement being a 1.62 effect size and collective teacher efficacy. So number one, how can you estimate how well your kids are going to do? And then how can you grow them from that point? And number two, how well can teachers work together? Obviously the PLC model. And our data is going to help you do both of those things and project where student scores should be. And if they're not there, how can you identify which specific area within that student that they need to work on to get to that point? And we know that a 1.62 in John Hattie's effect size is actually equivalent to 4 years growth, because a 0.4 is about 1 year's growth. If you haven't looked at John Hattie, we would always encourage you to look at that as well. And oftentimes our teachers, they're told, hey, you need to go improve. But we're going to tell you on a teak-by-teak basis where you can improve, where your strengths are, who you can help, and who you can get help from. So we want to provide those teachers success. And we don't want the words to be, hey, you did well because you have the high kids, or you did low, you just need to get better next year. We want it to be, hey, you did well and you had high kids and you took them higher. Hey, you had low kids, maybe they came in with a lower ability, but you still grew them. And so we really want to just show that every kid has that capacity to grow, and every teacher has that capacity to grow, and where the specificity is on where those growth points are. So we feel like, again, we're misdiagnosing kids and continuing to spin our wheels, because currently we look at data systems and we look at them like this. We say, okay, well, your strong teak's 88, another strong teak 82. Anything lower than a 70 you need to improve on. But when we look at the algorithms for the Eukolos, we're going to say, okay, well, what was the level of kids? Okay, so that 88%, that level of kids, maybe they were expected to maybe get a 98. Instead, their actual performance was an 88. We really feel like we missed the boat by 5 points. We had some money on the table there that's actually a growth area for us, because we feel like the kids should have been getting maybe a 95 or a 93 instead of an 88. So that's an area we can grow. Same thing here in 82, maybe the expected performance, there's a 12-point difference there. We can show you that just because it's an 82 doesn't mean that it's not a point that you can't grow your kids and yourself as you're performing as a teacher. And then we obviously look at the low levels, and sometimes you may be outperforming the district or outperforming the state with the level of kids you have, and maybe a 69 isn't that bad. Maybe you're actually 8 points above, and we're going to see that as a strong suit. Not to say we don't want to continue to improve it, but maybe that's not where we're going to be the most effective with our time. And again, looking at the others, same thing, and you can see the idea. Okay, so now now when deciding which teak to improve first, which teak will be the easiest to improve? Now we can look at it as a teak by teak basis. And imagine if every teacher across a district, or at least across your school, could know this information and be able to identify where they need help and where they can give help to other teachers across the district. So our purpose is now looking at this new accountability system where we're going to put a great emphasis on students getting that mastery level. How can we take our kids and continue to grow each one of them individually? Well, we want to look at the teaks that we can grow the quickest, and we know that kids are going to move up. Teak 3.2D, we're going to continue to grow kids. Teak 3.4A. Now that we can grow them very specifically